Most people think PE is just a fun class, but for him, it wasn't even supposed to be his career.
I get into the IT world, then you ask, how did I become a PE coach?
It wasn't the plan, it was just alignment.
The reason why I became a PE coach really was to have the alignment with my wife, the alignment with my daughter.
But once he stepped into that gym, he saw it differently.
PE is not recess. These are life skills. It has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with life.
This is about building the whole child and not just keeping kids busy. You might be really wondering, what does physical education look like here in Marion County? And today, that is exactly why I brought Coach Koviak on at Bellevue Santos Elementary to talk about what he's done in his program, the great lengths that he's accomplished so far since being there, and so much more. Let's dive in, and this is Florida Unscripted. All right, Koviak, so tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got started being a PE coach.
Sure. It's funny they used to call me Koviak. When I was growing up, we had like 4 Jeffs in my graduating class. And so my whole life, I really have gone by Koviak much, much more than even Jeff itself. No, it's fine calling me Koviak. I love that. It's Coach Koviak. It's Koviak. Then after being in the military, you don't have a first name for 4 years at a minimum from there. My wife and I, when I got out of the military, I was a defense contractor. And after being a defense contractor for a couple of years, my wife and I, she had got to the point where she needed to go full-time in school, and I got to the point where I had reached the maximum I could do as a defense contractor. So we made the decision to go back to school, and we both applied to Michigan State University. The year that we started was Michigan State had surpassed Columbia University as the #1 elementary education program. And so my mom was a kindergarten teacher. The plan was go to Michigan State. Oh, they're the #1 program from elementary education. And we graduated from Michigan State. In my senior year of Michigan State, my buddy started taking Microsoft courses. And so he was telling me, he's like, Jeff, you know all about this IT stuff. You're way more. I'm like, I barely know any of this stuff. But I started researching, and one of the funny stories I tell, because this kind of dates me, I had a professor who had an overhead projector. And I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but I'm very, very resourceful. And so if you had office hours, Koviak was coming. And so I would go to her door, and she asked me, she's like, hey, how can I help you? You know, when I was like, well, you have all your notes, you keep putting them up on the overhead projector. Could you just email me your notes ahead of time? So instead of me taking, copious amounts of notes, I could just add to what I wanted to do. And the look of horror, now think about this, this is 1997. The look of horror on her face was, well, if I email them to you, I have to email them to everybody. And I went, okay. And she had no idea or concept of how she could send a document out to a lot of other people. And that kind of triggered, I was like, well, do you have a listserv? You could have a listserv, people could sign up for the listserv, and then when you would just email the single listserv, and then we would all get the notes. I might as well have been speaking a foreign language. She had no idea what I was speaking about. And so I was telling my buddy this, he goes, Jeff, you don't understand. You're going to be an educator, you're going to be a teacher. There is a lack of people being able to train professionals on how to use technology in IT. So I started looking at Microsoft and Microsoft certifications in my senior year at Michigan State. After 9/11, there was a pretty big void here in Florida. People were getting laid off, people were losing their jobs, and there was a lot of career redevelopment, career resources. So I came down here, specifically here to Ocala, to teach IT courses to transitioning professionals. In that time, I still have my degree in education, and people would meet me, they're like, you're an elementary school teacher? I said, well, my degree's in elementary education, but I have a focus in technology in the classroom, and that kind of led me down this path. Long story short, I get into the IT world. I've moved around a few times in the state with the IT world, but then you asked, how did I become a PE coach? When I was in school at Michigan State, I did take a couple of courses in kinesiology. I am elementary education. At Michigan State, you could have a history minor, you could have a earth sciences minor, you could have a language art minor. I did history and language art with a focus on technology in the classroom. And so any course that had technology in the classroom, I just jumped on it circa 1997, 2000. We moved down here, I navigated the waters, and I always approached my IT world as a teacher. I always approach it as, hey, this is my opportunity to teach someone. But I also had those kinesiology courses in my background. So when my daughter became a senior in high school, she was very, very active. She was in all the clubs. She was doing all the things. And IT can be very demanding, and you're kind of on call. My wife is a teacher in Marion County. She does teach at Marion Oaks Elementary. And the idea of me having the exact same schedule as my wife and my daughter was very, very appealing. The fact that I had an elementary education degree allowed me to apply to DOE, but having those kinesiology courses in my background, I wanted to be on the same schedule as them, but I thought, okay, my elementary education, they don't really have history T courses. So I looked, and that summer there were 6 PE open positions. I'm like, okay. I went and took the PE, the state of Florida has a PE examination. I went and took, and the running joke that I have is that out of 100 questions, I got 6 of them on archery. And I could only imagine me at the K through 5 levels. Okay, kinders, here's your bow and arrow. But no, I make the joke, but no, 6 of my 100 questions were about archery. But no, I took and passed the test. I had to so again, I've told this story many times. I applied to all 6 positions. I used a resume, applied on Marion Oaks. And I'm a big bicyclist. I love riding my mountain bike. I love riding on the trails. I told my wife, hey, I submitted for all 6 of those positions. I'm just going to go on a bike ride. When I'm on my bike ride, I put my phone in focus mode, for sport, so I'm not bothered. I can still get texts from my wife, but I don't get phone calls. By the time I had gotten back from my 45-minute bike ride, all 6 principals had contacted me and trying to schedule an interview after the 4th of July. Bellevue, Santos, they were the first one to reach out. They were like, hey, can we get you here on Tuesday? I came in on that Tuesday. Miss White, she's Air Force veteran. I'm a Marine veteran. We had a really, really, really good interview, but the interview turned into a conversation and just, a lot of good discussion. And she said, well, Coach, Ms. Koviak, I'd love to offer you the job. And I just told her, I said, I'd like to check with my wife. But then as I was driving back down 95th Street, I was like, man, right there is the all-purpose path. And the all-purpose path is something I take advantage of with my bicycles. I have a trail bicycle. I have what I call a cruiser boot bicycle that I take with me on spring break. And then I have an e-bike that's an actual commuter bicycle. And I was like, oh, wow, I could get back to commuting to work. And a lot of the people here, Coach, did you ride your bike to work? No, I didn't do it today on a 20-degree, when that temperature gets down at 32 degrees, Coach has the cold weather gear, but Coach doesn't have the cold weather discipline. So no, when the weather is nice, I'd like to come in at least 3 times a week and ride the bicycle. It's like that, I can drive here in 30 minutes, right? With stoplights and going over the bridge and make a left, make a right. Or I can go up the back right of my subdivision and I can be here in 44 minutes, but I get to ride through the forest. I get to ride through the trees. I get to see the bunnies. I get to see, I've seen deer. I've seen bear. We have bear in Marion County. So the reason why I became a PE coach really was to have the alignment with my wife, the alignment with my daughter. Now that my daughter is at University of Florida, we've been very fortunate the last few years that their spring break aligned with our spring break. So I still get to go on spring break with her, but also as my wife and I go into our next chapter. I mean, we're not empty nesters. I have an older son and I have my daughter. My son is working. It's funny when somebody would say, I'm taking a gap year. I'm taking a growth year. Man, when I was in high school, what that meant was you're throwing out a backpack and you're going to go, mountain climbing through Europe. No, today, that growth year, gap year, in between either your 2-year degree and your 4-year degree, your 4-year degrees and your master's and your doctorate, it means something now. And so my son is doing his growth year. He got his CNA last summer, and so he's doing his growth year, but he lives at home. But he's an adult. He's paying his bills. He's doing all the things he's supposed to do. My daughter's up at college. So my wife and I have to have our next step. So relying on that education degree that I got at Michigan State, knowing that I had those kinesiology courses, coaching 1 and coaching 2, also being a veteran, military veteran, Marine Corps, I do like the idea of being in the gymnasium. And that wasn't appeal. I mean, we're here in a gymnasium. In Marion County, there are only 2 elementary schools that have gymnasiums, us and Pheasant, 2 of the older schools in the place. And we're very, very fortunate to have it. Here we have cold weathers this week, and my kids still get to participate, and they're still doing something.
I know it's interesting. When I found that out for the first time, I thought that was interesting in comparison to some of the other places I know that they do have indoor gymnasiums typically, but I know in Marion County that it's just not a thing. Some gym teachers don't even have room. I've talked to some of them. They don't even have really room to do what you guys do because you guys have a very large field to go out to.
Correct.
Where some schools, their property is just very small, and so
Yes.
they just don't, they only have the courtyards to do something in.
So
it's got to be hard.
The Ross Prairie built their brand new elementary school.
Yep.
Winding Oaks brought up their brand new school. One of the unique things that they did at those 2 schools is they didn't build gymnasiums, but they built a concrete pad and they built a structure over the top of it. Now, cold weather procedures, they still have to go indoors. Either they don't have portables at those facilities yet, but they have classrooms that they get to go into, and the classroom, they can do some activities, but as you said, you're limited to the space that you have. However, it was nice seeing that these 2 brand new schools they had PE in some kind of mindset of, hey, we need to have a covered area. Hey, this is a designated area for PE. PE is not recess. And I think that's a very important part that, yes, we have fun. Play is a very important word because, yes, we participate. Yes, we play, but play on the playground and participation in PE, that's different. We participate in games, we play games, but we're not recess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so having those two new schools, Winding Oaks and Ross Prairie, those having those dedicated facilities. Now, you brought something else also. Sometimes when these schools, like the growth and the change in the district, right? As these growths and changes happen, the school district, they have to move portables in. And a lot of times, some of those portables have to go where it used to be old PE fields. And so those PE coaches across the district, man, very, very sharp. We have some very, very sharp physical education teachers in Marion County. We're very, very good at use of space. But this being a much, much older campus, man, am I so fortunate. I have a gymnasium. I have an outdoor facility. I have a giant field. So we've been very, very fortunate here. I know other schools are not that fortunate. Would I like a covered area outside? We all want something more, but no, I think what they did with the new schools, I think that they have it as it's on their radar that, hey, PE means something, and that means something to me.
No, I think PE is a big part of, when you go to school. I mean, my mom really liked sports, and so she always talks about how in PE, they teach you how to play different sports. You're getting exposed to different things that you didn't know that you may be good at or that you liked doing. And so I just think it goes along with music, art, and PE should all be viewed the same, and they are just as important to a child's development as writing, rap, math, and anything else that we do outside of that. So would you say that seeing like some of the viewpoints of PE and also how things are structured, was that like kind of a surprise to you when you got into it?
Everybody has that kind of, okay, so in the fall, they're going to do football stuff. And then, so they'll do some basketball stuff. And they're going to do some soccer stuff. And they could do some track and fields. Often PE is directly associated to sport, right? And that's okay. But one of the transitions for me is that meeting our district, we have a district coordinator that's over all of physical education. And seeing the year at a glance document, it's cooperation. It is teamwork. Right now we're doing throwing and catching, going into striking with a body part, striking with a long-handed implement, striking with a short-handed implement. And so when you break it down like that, to answer your question, one of the first eye-opening thing is that I don't say I'm teaching soccer. I used Poison Ball by Omnikin this week. I was teaching, but that's striking with a body part. That's an underhand strike. When you're being chased by the ball, that's chasing and fleeing. And so some of these concepts, when you realize, PE isn't just, they're running around in the field soccer. No. They're striking with the body part. They're kicking. Yes. They're dribbling. Yes. That's using a movement, a locomotive movement with an actual ideology. More of the sports stuff is taught at the middle school level, and then at the high school level, they can kind of even more specialize. But I was very, very fortunate to get to go to the SHAPE conference this year. I was one of the PE coaches that was selected to go to SHAPE conference and represent Marion County. And I was very, very fortunate. I teach at Bellevue Santos Elementary. The Bellevue Middle School coach was there. And we just had an opportunity to sit down and have a meal together. His name's Coach Luther. I said, hey, Coach Luther, I'm Coach Koviak. I teach at Bellevue Santos. Oh, yeah, Coach, I get your kids all the time. I'm like, hey, what are you seeing or what are you not seeing at the middle school level? How could I be helpful? And he was like totally shocked. He's like, Coach, nobody's ever asked me that. He goes, I'll tell you. Could you start working with them on teaching them how to throw? We have some great games we want to play, but we spend so much of our time going back over the mechanics of throwing. And I went, done. Two-handed throw, chest pass, these different movements that, you're not really pushing it, you're snapping it, fingertips. There's a lot of mechanics behind it that when they get to middle school, if they have that foundation, it's going to make middle school's life that much easier. That's a consideration. That's a surprise that I had never thought of. Hey, yes, this is elementary school. Yes, we have PE. Yes, we have these standards, but we can be the foundational standards for what anyone does for the rest of their career. And We're going into February, March. A little sidebar here. One of the concepts or ideas that I'm still developing, still putting together is we live in Florida. We're surrounded by water. We all go to the beach eventually. Not very many of us are going to be a USTA professional tennis player, but have you ever gone to the beach and carried 2 paddles and a ball in the waves and just kind of knocked the ball back and forth? Have you ever gone to the beach and there's a volleyball and you just, you're not playing volleyball, but you're bumping it around in the circle and, oh, you knocked it out, There's a social aspect to it. There's a life aspect to it that when you're at the beach, you're going to see a soccer ball. You're going to see a volleyball. You're going to see wave paddles. It's very common to see a water football or just a normal football to throw the ball back and forth. That's one of my concepts that I want to build a unit. And it's there. I'm still building it up. Build a unit that would transition into like, hey, let's get ready for spring break. And these are activities that you might see at spring break. I think that's 3 different ones that I showed you, that knowing that there's standards and it's not just play, knowing that we can be foundational, something that sets up for middle school, but knowing that we can be something that relates to outside of the school, like if you go to the beach or if you go on summer vacation.
Those are important skills to have. I was homeschooled the majority of my life, and I had a mother, like I said, that really liked sports. Like, my mom was naturally gifted at sports, so anything she picked up, she was pretty much good at. So she always taught me, like, those things. Like, I really liked basketball, so my mom was like, okay, well, I'm going to run you through basketball drills. And so we did basketball drills. Same thing when I thought about doing softball, which I did not do because I hate wearing all that stuff, and we live in Florida. No. She was like, the only way you're going to do it is if you can pitch, because I have a really good arm, and so I was like, okay, Mom, show me how to pitch. So my mother taught me a lot of those things, and I'm fortunate in that way that she liked sports so much that I got that. I do realize that I find most of my counterparts, when I talk about that, they didn't have a mother that was maybe as intense or as involved as mine. Your daughter probably thinks the same thing, that maybe, I have a dad that's super intense, that likes to push me to do things, which is good.
No, but to that point, she can go to the beach and her boyfriend says, hey, it's pretty cool that she can throw the football. I'm like, yeah. And she likes to sit down and watch football. It has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with life.
Yes.
These are life skills. This is, I love when they say it. I love mixing my words, my verbiage with their verbiage. These are making the whole child, right? No, that's true. You're making the whole child. That these are life skills that relate. You had a very, very fortunate, you know how to pick up a softball. And you don't have to whip it 100 miles an hour, but could you toss it back and forth and just in a social setting, in a casual setting? Those are life skills.
And I think they're life skills that we've kind of lost, because a lot of parents are not taking the time or spending time with their children, whether it's because they're too busy, they don't know themselves, or they, maybe the children are just not interested in the sport, in certain sports, like as maybe in the same number that they once were, or it looks different in today's world because they'd rather be playing video game sports instead of actually doing the sport. I feel like we have a mixture of things, but I do find less kids know some of those things.
I think the word mixture is the key there, right? You've got kids that are in travel this, travel that. So you've got these, you do have pockets of kids and pockets of students that are super, super, super active, right? But here in Bellevue, they don't even have a bowling alley. And again, I know Ocala's not like a million miles away, but it's a drive for some of the kids that are in the southern part of Bellevue to go bowling, right? So access, there is an element of access, so I'll acknowledge that. There is an acknowledgement that interest, right? Video games give you that instant gratification, gets that dopamine hit right in the front, right? But the social aspect, right? Being connected to other, regulation, but also resolution, right? A lot of people like to talk about self-regulation. I'll probably work that in later on, but resolution. You were out. I was safe. I were out. You were safe, right? If I'm in my house and you're in your house, I get to hit the power button and walk away. But if you're in the street, if you're in the playground, if you're on the field, rock, paper, scissors. That's how we, Coach, I was safe. Coach, I got him. She didn't get me. All right, rock, paper, scissors. There was a basketball player that used to say the ball don't lie. Whenever the ball, if he committed a foul and they said he didn't, if he was arguing, and Rasheed Wallace, and the ball would brick off the back, Rasheed Wallace would go, ball don't lie. Rock, paper, scissors don't lie. So if it was any one thing, it would be easily solved.
I agree.
But with it being multiple things, that's why I take the position I'm here so seriously, is that this is 50 minutes. Not all activities are awesome. Sometimes we've got to do mechanics and drills, but the mechanics and drills lead to something. And so I like to show that progression. And I'm pretty transparent with the kids that, hey, this is something that we have to do to get where we want to go. yeah, we would all love to just jump into the game, but we need an equalizer. We need to everybody has to have a basis to go from.
No, I think that's true. And I do find that I think as across American sports in general have started to really realize that making children do the non-fun stuff and doing those fundamental things are what going to propel them in their future of sports, whatever that looks like for them. I interviewed Tim Sato, which he's a big basketball coach here in Ocala, and we talked about that. And he does a lot of fundamentals. He does one-on-one coaching with kids and stuff, and he played internationally in Lebanon, and so we were talking about, because now basketball is a big thing internationally, and it used to be America was that, and we barely won the gold medal this past summer Olympics. It was pretty close.
The game's changed.
Yeah, game's changed, and so he was talking about in America, we have to focus on those fundamentals, because without those, we just won't see the type of athletes that other countries are seeing, because they start them so young with those types of movements you're talking about. I didn't even know those were a thing. I didn't even think about it in that way. I'm sure it sounds like you didn't really either.
When you're surrounded by the professionals that I'm surrounded by,
yes,
we have some amazing physical education coaches in this district that they're passionate about it. And so when you surround yourself with those kinds of people, the kind of people I went to shape with, you can rise up. I think that's where I came from, is that I had an idea, but then when you're surrounded by it, it's it kind of opens it up of, oh wow, this could be even more.
And I think also people are realizing too that if they're, just because their child's not good at the big four, soccer, basketball, football, and volleyball, those kind of maybe they're not good at those, but they could be good at something else and they can still get a scholarship. That's become more and more of a thing too. And college is expensive. So if you can, they have golf scholarships now. They have all kinds of different scholarships for all kinds of sports. And I mean, even it's kind of started when I went to college, but now it's in full swing. I see more and more people that I'm you're playing that and you get a scholarship. They're yeah. I'm okay, good on you. I didn't even know that was a sport that was played at that college. But let's talk a little bit about what an average day of PE class looks like in elementary school.
Sure. So the way every school is a little bit different, right? So in our school, our media specialist, our librarian, she is on what's called the specials wheel. So every student throughout the day gets some form of special area focus. So we have a music program, we have an art program, we have a PE program, we have the media specialist program. So doing that, each student in the state of Florida is required to have 150 minutes of physical education per week, or within a week. This particular school chooses to do 3 PE sessions of 50 minutes. So to start off the bat, we have 50-minute sessions. Our day starts with second grade. We go second grade into first grade into kindergarten. This school separates, a lot of times in physical education, there's K through 2 and there's 3 through 5. There's concepts that cover K through 5, but we do K through 2 in the morning, we do 3 through 5 in the afternoon. So it's a 50-minute session. So right off the bat, routines and procedures are so important, right? When you have that many moving bodies, we can have as many as 60 to 72 kids for 2 adults. Right now, we don't rate to have a paraprofessional physical education tech, so it's just 2 coaches. So all day long, 3 classes are coming to us. Now that's different at each different school. Each school does their way, but generally 3 50-minute sessions for each student by grade level. And so it's early in this year, it's all about establishing routines and procedures. Safety is the number one. Safety outweighs everything. When you have that many moving bodies, and we've already talked about, you have different skill levels and different expectations. You factor in this year where you have student movement, right? The district did some realignment, so you have students that hey, coach over there does this. You have to establish those routines, procedures, so that everybody's on the same page. So I would say, what does a day in physical education look like? I say you really kind of break it down into, what does Coach Nelson always say? What you do in August, you'll reap the rewards in April, because that sets the foundation. But generally, we come in, I like to have have them do a walk. Indoors, we don't do a lot of running and jogging because, again, so many people. When we're outdoors, we do a lot of running and jogging. When the weather's nice, I do try to get them outside more than inside, but we do have an amazing gymnasium. The activities that I can use a hard court for, yeah, I want to do the hard court for, but come in, let's do a couple laps around, and people are like, oh, he's just walking them out. And no, you're looking for shoelaces, you're looking for proper footwear, you're looking to see who's, are they walking on the black line? Are they following the route? It also lets me look at each kid's face to start the day. Are they having a good day? Are they not having a good day? Did something happen at recess, right? And one of the things that I like to build very early is, hey, what happens on outside of those gym doors, leave it there. Come be PE for 50 minutes. And then when you're done in PE for 50 minutes, when you leave here, leave it here. But what happens in PE, you're good. Move on to the next. Try to build it that it's a 50-minute window. That's not this. It's not this. It's PE. And so on the front end and back end. So that starts with the walkout. So I like to do a walkout. Maybe 1 or 2 songs. Lets me touch base with some of my students. Some of my students, Coach, that was my birthday. I want those conversations too, but I also want to make sure that everybody's ready. Last year, I had a particular warm-up drill that I use. I'm still going to use it this year. I was getting a lot of research and I was getting a lot of literature about a different warm-up. And so this year we started a different warm-up. I'm calling it the warrior warm-up. It has some background both in Tai Chi, but it's a guy I follow on Instagram. But, we start with, they call them lymphatic hops.
Okay.
I just tell them, hey, we're going to do some jumping jacks, right? Jumping jacks. If you want to use loose arms, you can use loose arms, or you can do a true jumping jack. Then we go from there, we go into arm swings, right? Think about this. A lot of these students, they've been sitting all day long, if it's 5th grade, or they've been sitting for a little bit. Getting that warm up is important because we do it, right?
Yeah.
So I established that very early in the season. It's non-negotiable. We do a warm up, we do an activity, we do a cool down. And the cool down could simply be, hey, let's get some water bottles. Let's sit in the shade. A cool down could be as simply as walk back around the cones, take a breath, it's kind of funny. I went to school and I didn't carry a water bottle until I went into the Marine Corps. Now I got 5-year-olds slugging around 40-ounce Stanleys, right?
I know.
Yeah, and they're bigger than their head. But I'm indifferent. Like, hey, if you want to carry your water bottle, maybe later. I have a shelf system that I use. First class in is yellow shelf. Second class in is the orange shelf. Third class is in the green shelf. If we're in the warm-up, please allow me to have the warm-up. After the warm-up, go get a drink. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, nor should you make a big deal out of it. And I think when you take that stigmatization out of it, where it's not a big deal, okay, I can just get water when I want. But I do want it over there because I don't want it on the court. I want it over there. I don't want somebody to get splashed over here, right? So conceptually, routines and procedures on the front end, that leads into, hey, a quick little walkout. Some people call it a check-in. I just call it a walkout, but a quick little check-in gives me the opportunity to work with each student. We do a warm-up. We'll have some kind of activity, whether it be a stations, whether it be an actual game of some kind, and then usually some kind of wind down time. Coach and I, we like to ask reflective questions. We like, we do build that in. So that's a typical session.
Now, I know you kind of talked about, you've tiptoed around and talking about how Marion County's had a lot of growth, which is true. We've definitely had a lot of growth. Believe me, I know. It's changed a lot, especially since Dario's been here the last 6 years. The school has grown significantly. Every other week there for a bit, she was like, I have new students. I have new students. I have new students. It was a little crazy. I think it's gotten a little bit better since they did some of the rezoning, but I don't know. But what do you think some of the challenges that you're seeing that some of the PE teachers are dealing with those changes?
Well, as we alluded to before, we talked about before, no two schools operate exactly the same. So like the coaches over at Winding Oaks, they're getting a different amount of students at once. The ones over at Ross Prairie are getting a different amount of students. The ones down here, that's down the street at Bellevue, they actually have a tech. So from a PE perspective, it's about managing the numbers and then making sure you have the appropriate amount of equipment. I would love to do all the kinds of fun things, but you do have, equipment does factor into it. So then you segment it out. In terms of the actual growth, we were projected to be one thing. My wife being a teacher over at Marion Oaks Elementary, they were expecting a certain amount of number, and they're about 200 lower than they expected.
Okay.
And so I think you have some schools that were like, oh my gosh, overwhelmed with the number of students that they got. And so it was, and so it's movement. Like Bellevue Santos were a little bit lower than we were projected. Marion Oaks was a little bit lower than they projected. Then it's not just the grade level either. Like my 4th grade classes, we have 4 4th grade classes. But man, 1st grade, we're packed. And so I think it also has to do with the 8. So from a specials area, it's challenging because the number of students that come for kindergarten isn't directly related to the number ones that come at 1st grade, the numbers that come at 2nd grade, and so forth and so on. But I think it's challenging at each school because I think they had one idea, and because like you had mentioned the rezoning, I think every school is challenged by, oh, I thought we were getting this many, or oh man, we did not expect this many. And then we see that too also after we see it pretty regularly where we lose a couple of students during the year and we gain a couple of students. Families move, and so we see that too. So it's like, oh, hey, where'd you come from? Oh, I came from Orlando. Oh, hey, where'd you come from? Oh, I came from Miami. Oh, where'd you come from? I came from Pennsylvania. And so, it's...
Those are probably the top 3 places you hear. Yeah.
New Jersey, New York,
Yep.
Ohio, Pennsylvania. I've got 2 kids from South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah, they came last year from South Dakota. I was like, wow, that's a big move. And it is, because South Dakota, they're really cold up there. Like we talked about before, if you just had one scenario, it would be really easy to acknowledge that. But I think with so many moving parts, I think it is challenging. And I think as a district, I think it's something that they're going to be challenged with every year. Because like you have mentioned, the growth is it's the most we've ever seen. I think I just saw the article that the U-Haul place on Pine Street, they take in more U-Hauls than any other U-Haul. Like they have the numbers. That's the number 1 returned U-Haul store in the nation.
Wow.
Well, who uses U-Hauls? Yeah, people moving. So, but I also think if you watch the school board meetings, they're challenged by what's happening in the northeast part of the county because those schools are spread out and their populations are not the same as some of the ones in the south and the southwest.
It's because they don't have the room to grow that you guys do. Because, you do pull some students from Bellevue Heights Estates like that, and that area is not fully built out yet.
No.
Marion Oaks, I've done the math. That's 84,000 homes. And so,
That's crazy.
I think some of the projection numbers and then you guys not meeting them partly had to do with how many houses that were built but then not sold because the market has slowed. And so you kind of, you have all these permits, the county knows, so they're expecting X, Y, and Z. And, the houses didn't sell. Right now there's 400 homes in Marion Oaks for sale. New construction. That's just new construction. And so with the market slowing down, is it completely dead? No, but it definitely is not what it once was. And so I think it is a benefit to Marion County and those that are looking to move here at this time. You guys can kind of catch up. We have a chance probably in the next year or 2 to kind of do some catching up that should have been done a long time ago. Here, why it happened, why it didn't. It's too late now. We're already here. I hope that they take this slowdown as some time to be like, we got to get stuff done.
I think even seeing this year how they rezone some of the transportation to bring students here, but I think they would be flexible enough to say, okay, we thought this, and then like you said, now there are these 400 homes. It's going to come down to transportation.
Yep.
It's going to come down to what probably makes sense. I think you have different growth pockets in different areas. In other areas, they haven't been built out. I would like to sit in on those, but man, I don't want to be in charge of making decisions for those.
I know, it's going to be interesting because the Northeast side, I have a lot of people that are like, well, I want to live in XYZ school district, but I want a new house. And I'm like, that doesn't exist because that area is built out. There's nothing really new there. And they're like, really? And I'm like, really? It's a well-established area. So in Marion County, we just have a weird influx of new, old, I think we've seen every growth spurt. Every, time frame of growth, we've seen it. And this last one just was a big one. And so, but I do see some changes, some positive changes. And I think overall, Marion County is going to pull it together. It's just, we got hit really hard, really fast. Faster than I think anybody thought. I don't think anybody expected us to be number 2 on where everybody's moving. I don't think anybody ever imagined Ocala would be this epicenter of where everybody wants to move.
I can only imagine trying to play catch up. But you said, hopefully at least the ability to try to look at, what those numbers are looking like. Having Winding Oaks opened up and having Ross Prairie opened up, we know that they they want to build a new Lake Weir Middle School. So
they're already working on it. It's around from my house. Yeah.
Yep. So to your point, I think that they're taking the opportunity. You hear it on the school board meetings. You hear it from teachers. It was so beneficial that people voted in that half-cent gas tax.
Yes.
And I think the way that the school board is presenting it in the school board meetings and what they're doing and how they're presenting what they're doing with it, it costs money to build a school.
Unfortunately, everything got so expensive.
But seeing 2 new schools, knowing that the new South High School is going to be built, both of my kids went through Westport. They would actually be zoned for the new high school. Westport used to be a middle school and a high school, and that school is just bursting at the seams, and they have amazing programs.
They do.
So knowing that Winding Oaks, knowing that Ross Prairie in the southwest side, and now we have the new South High School, knowing that Lake Weir Middle School is online and moving forward. Currently, there is a concept of what they're going to do here in Bellevue for an elementary school. So to your point, I think they acknowledge there's growth. I think they acknowledge that to be fluid, to be able to move things around, and I think they've showed that they would. But like you said, hopefully they get a minute to be able to go, okay, is this right? Okay, we got it right. Well, could we move this? Cool. Yeah.
It's all just test and kind of go
but
with everything.
From a PE perspective, we are going to accommodate all the kids that come. We're going to be super flexible with the way that we're going to do things. We're very, very fortunate to have a gym. But yeah, some numbers, I started this conversation out. Safety has to be number one, and I'll always put that first over everything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, kids can get wild, especially in elementary school. I mean, middle and high school, yes, they get wild too, but it definitely looks a little bit different than a bunch of kindergartners who haven't been in school before and are just excited and, had their Christmas party, and now they're with you.
Send me some kids coming out of Kona ice. My
go.
favorite day. Coach, run them. I'm like, that's not what we do here, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, they show up, their lips they got their Kona ice mustache.
I know. That's such a big thing. Well, so let's talk a little bit about parents. What do you think is the number one thing that they misunderstand most about PE?
Well, and again, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, that the idea of play versus participation. And this is me. That's not written down anywhere like that, but I'll give you another example. Not every kid wants to be a volleyball player. Not every kid wants to be a basketball player. Not every kid wants to be a football player. But the idea that you can throw a football or bounce a ball, or dribble a ball, or, kick the ball. One of the things I'm most proud of is that I did not grow up with speed stacking. And if you don't know what speed stacking is, it is plastic cups that are done in a systematic way, a routine, if you will, that I had never done. Both of my kids at their age, speed stacking was super, super cool, and then super, super non-existent. And a lot of PE programs do have speed stacking in their program, but I would say in the last 3 years, speed stacking is back on the rise. And there are USA competitions, there are national competitions, there are state competitions, but sequencing, the left brain, right, crossing the center line, working at, with both of your hands. We had no idea. BSE is now, we are a world record breaking school participant in the stack up event this year. So for 5 weeks, now we're not going to do it for 5 weeks. We don't know what we don't know. So this year we built a 5-week program, probably went a little long. It's okay. Next year we'll dial it back or we'll do other activities along with it. But every student in this school participated in the stack up event, and every student in the school can say, I'm a member of a world record participant for a world record for the number of consecutive stackers in the world. And so I think that's pretty cool. But to that point is, how does that relate to parents? I do have parents that are very big athletes and very big sports people. And coach, why aren't you playing flag football on day 2? And then I have other parents that's like, hey, they stubbed their toe. Would it be cool if they, and I'm like, yeah, but we're doing speed stacks. So I'm always going to defer to a doctor's note, obviously, because as a doctor, I'm always going to defer to an injury, but we're doing speed stacks this week. If you're in your own personal space, we're going to be fine. To answer your question, I think you have parents on both ends of the spectrum. And some of those parents, they did not have a great experience in physical education. I always try to welcome the parents in when they're on campus. I do maintain an Instagram account at pe.at.bse, and I try to post the different activities that we're doing. I write a lot of grants, and so part of the grant process that I always put in my grant is, hey, not only am we going to do this, but I'm going to tell other people we're doing this, and I'm going to give you guys full credit for supporting our program. This year, the school advisory committee, they helped pay for one of the Speed Stack kits. Speed Stacks themselves loaned us a classroom set. And then I borrowed a set from the Fitness and Nutrition and Sports, the FANS program that falls under MCPS. The FANS program, they loaned us a set. So we were able to provide a speed stacking set for every single student here on campus, where we had 0 in August. So August we had nothing. For the world record breaking attempt, every student had their own set of cups. Every student did a 3-3-3. Every student did a 3-6-3. These are terms of sequencing. From a parent perspective, I think it's really important to be out there. Now, I don't post every day. I do not have a team. It's just Coach Koviak that we load up our activities. But I've been contacted from PE coaches in Texas. I've been contacted from PE coaches in Michigan. I've been contacted from PE coaches in New York. The one in Texas, I use some of his videos when we do the cardio drums, and he reached out with a private message to the students last year And the students just thought that was so fantastic. Right now, the mayor of Ocala, Ben Marciano, he's running the Mayor's Fitness Challenge.
Yep.
So for the last 3 weeks, now we're in week 4, he has put together with his physical fitness trainers from the Zone Fitness, they have put together appropriate fitness program, and we run those fitness challenges here in class. And so I think when you have the mayor putting it out there, you have the support of the Marion County Hospital District, you have the support of the Fitness and Nutrition and Sports Department under Marion County, and then you have us as the PE coaches. Last week, over 5,800 students in the district participated in the Mayor's Fitness Challenge. So I think, going back to your question about how does that relate to parents, I think if parents see some of this on social media, if parents see some of the flyers, if you see it from these different entities that, oh wow, our PE program is part of this. Our PE program is part of a much larger concept. And so that's what we've been doing coming out of January. But I've let the parents know in the best way I can through my Instagram channel that, hey, we had to do up downs this week. Mayor Ben put up downs in the program, and I got to teach these kids how to do up downs. Now they provide videos, and the videos are great, but you got to teach it to first grade. And a first grader may not understand the concept quite the same way as a fourth grader. And so that's what's the fun challenge. But communication's important. I think letting people know, but I also think it can't fall on any one entity. We're very fortunate here. Our administration at BSE is very pro special areas. They go out of their way to make sure that, hey, they're not 50 minutes a break. They have standards that they address. And we have an award-winning art program. We have an award-winning music program. And yes, we have an award-winning PE program. But I think that's also indicative of having a good administration, but having the fitness and nutrition and sports, having that support of the Marion County Hospital District that supports that, but also, a mayor like Ben Marciano, him putting this out, he didn't have to do that, but he did that and he wanted it in schools. And now this year, to see the growth from last year to this year is pretty amazing. And I think all of those components can help reach back out to the parents.
I think the main thing that I see from parents in Marion County is there's just that disconnect between what's going on in the school versus what's going on the outside. And I don't think Marion County as a whole, like a school district, always does very well with bringing that to the modern age. When I tell people that there's so many awesome programs at our schools and they're like, those exist. And I'm like, yeah, if your kid is excelling, and not every child is school's their thing, but if school is your child's thing, like you can have some really great programs. I mean, even if it's not, they have great sports programs. And like Bellevue Middle, like some of the extracurricular activities that they have there is insane to me.
Coach Luther and his team over there, they run an amazing program at Bellevue. Like I said, I got to meet Coach Luther at Shape. He's very, very active. They were doing the Mayor's Fitness Challenge, and their principal is doing squats and heels. Now, I think that's insane, but she's out there, and the students pay attention to that. But I think you're right. I think there's so many moving parts.
Yes.
And I think that, yes, Marion County, we can all do a better job of broadcasting that out. But I also think it's a symbiotic relationship. You as a parent, you could take the initiative and go, hey, we had Stack Up. I have an open door policy. I will take anybody who's willing to help. I'll assign you a station and you can be the Fox and the Hound station. So yes, there's always room. We're one of only a few PE programs that have an Instagram page. Some people have a Facebook page. Some people send out a flyer, right? Yes, we can all do a better job of pushing out what we're doing. At the same time, when there are open houses, when there are award ceremonies, when there are these things, it's okay for the parents to also participate as well. I think it's both ways. I think we need everybody in the community in both directions, but I also think we have some amazing partners that go in between there too. So anybody that wants to help, all on board. Anybody that can help put the word out that, hey, they're doing some really cool things, absolutely. And I think if you watched, it's funny you should bring that up. Marion County Public Schools just recently really relaunched their Instagram page. The new superintendent, she has been out to different schools. For Martin Luther King Day, she was actually out at Marion Oaks Elementary. So to your point, I think that with the new superintendent, I do see a little bit more. Their Instagram account was almost kind of dormant, non-existent. And then in the last few weeks, they've actually had a few. And I have been contacted by their social media team that they want to do a feature on us because I had applied for a grant with the Public Education Foundation of Marion County. I was awarded a $5,000 grant, Public Education of Marion County. They want to come out and video, come see what we're doing because not very many PE programs apply for grants. And not only just apply for the grant, but then awarded the grant and then to see that all the way through fruition, it's project management. I mean, I've had to stay on top of it along with my other duties. Yes, I'm going to put that out on mine, but there's an example where you said, hey, Marion County I can tell you firsthand, I was reached out to by the social media team that they want to come and do a feature on this. So parents, get on those social media platforms if that's your lane, but also the phone calls home. You know, they do the robocalls and they do the emails. So I think it has to be both ways.
I think that's true. I just find that when people are looking at the schools or want to see what's going on, like from the outside, when I have customers moving here, they know nothing about the schools and you know, unless I go and interview somebody like yourself, which is something I'm really starting to want to do, you know, they don't get to see the inside. They don't get to know that much about you, really, in reality. We live such a world where everybody uses their phone to figure out who you are, if they like that person for their child. Like, I don't know if all teachers think that way. Probably a lot of them don't. But younger people, when they're sending their kids to school, the first thing they're going to do is look you up on Facebook.
Sure.
And see what you're about and who you are and make a lot of judgments and assumptions about yourself via whatever's on there. So I am happy to hear that. I'm in Marion County, when people look up the school district and they see like just cool stuff going on, because I know there's a lot of cool stuff going on in Marion County. And I tell people that. And they're like, really? And I'm like, really? Like, there are some really
there's some cool stuff.
There's some really cool stuff. And I just hope that it gets a little bit of an extra shine light from the school district and they kind of just start doing that more. Not that parents can't go and see it, but sometimes parents just don't have time, or people that are moving here. I just think Marion County, if some of the programs should get more credit than what they get. So let's put it that way.
I think so. No, I think that's fair. I think
that's how I feel about it. So towards the end, what I always ask is, if somebody's looking to be a PE coach or do what you do, what would you tell them?
First and foremost, you have to do your research. We are certified teachers. Obviously, right now in the state of Florida, I mean, I think it's fair to say there is a teacher shortage. And so the governor has provided some different paths for different backgrounds. Like if you're military, there's a path. If you have a partial degree, first and foremost, to be a physical education teacher, you do have to be a certified teacher. Now, there are pathways to becoming a certified teacher. I'm currently on that pathway myself. Yes, I have a degree in elementary education. Yes, I have coursework that is explicit to what I do. However, I have the exact same degree as my wife. My wife and I walked across the stage at the exact same time to get our degrees when we went to Michigan State University. She's a teacher. She's certified. This summer, I had to take a classroom management course. This past fall, I had to take a reading course. And I'm now signed up to take an ESOL course. I was identified of having to have 3 courses, right? So part of that is with the Department of Education. If you want to be a PE coach, first and foremost, you have to be a certified teacher or in a pathway to certified teacher. All of that is on Department of Education. 2, we've commented so many times, there are so many wildly amazing PE coaches that put out content, whether it be YouTube, whether it be teachers helping teachers, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Facebook. There are so many resources out there, and you don't have to just mimic what they do, but so many times, there's so many of these people are just so creative. So step 1, if they wanted to be a PE coach, do what it takes to become a certified teacher. 2, you do have to take the Florida examination to be a PE coach. Be prepared for 6 questions on archery. It just cracks me up, but take that examination. And then there is continuing education credits. There are things you have to do after the fact. But if somebody wanted to be a PE teacher, first and foremost is that. Now, that being said, Coach, I don't have my degree yet. That's okay. In Marion County, we have what's called PE techs. PE techs are different than a paraprofessional. And so a PE tech is how Coach Nelson, the previous coach here, he's now the coach at Oakcrest. Coach Nelson was a PE tech. Then he did what he needed to do to become a teacher. He had his 4-year degree, so he applied for his DOE. Everything's on their website. He got that. He got a position, and then he took the position here at Bellevue Santos. So to be a PE coach, it's straightforward, but there's multiple pathways to get there. But then once you're in it, there are so many resources that are available to you. I would also tell you, I think it's Open Varsity. If you do just Google search, Open Curriculum is 100% free, all lesson plans. And so even if you're a substitute teacher in the district or you're just thinking about it, if you look at the Open Curriculum, 100% of it's free, so much good resources. It gives you the concepts. And then on Marion County Public's website, they also have what we call the Year at a Glance document that's available. You can see the Year at a Glance document at the elementary school level, at the secondary levels. If you could then take that document and match it to what's in the open curriculum, many of us are using those. Now, do I use them verbatim? No, I like to be creative. If you guys could see out on the floor right now, I have rubber mats. Kids love floor is lava. So I took one of the activities that I found, I mixed it with this one. Now I do it with Tabata music.
Okay.
On the Tabata down, floor is lava. It's building their cardiovascular up, but I'm not running them to death. I'm getting them on their mats for 10 seconds, back to the activity for 20, on the mats for 10, back to the activity. So I used Tabata. I used an open curriculum lesson plan, and then I just used my own, my own little touch with the floor is lava.
Okay. So what are some of your goals? And if you want to add anything else, you feel free to for this year going into the 2026, 2027 school year.
This is really, really weird to say. Coming into this year, my number one goal was I wanted to do speed stacks.
Okay.
My number two goal was I wanted to expand my Omnikin program. Omnikin, the big giant ball I have behind me. This is the big ball. They have other activities in there. As we move out of this throwing and catching unit and we move into our striking with body parts element, I am so excited to bring an Omnikin meets Foursquare in the air, meets volleyball, so we're going to be doing some really, really cool activities with the much larger ball. So that was goal number 2. And then goal number 3 was I have wanted to apply. My first year here, we get these giant catalogs as PE coaches. We're like the little kid at Christmas, like the Amazon book, right? It's all PE equipment. And I was at a PD one time, and I was like, oh man, miniature golf. It is a full functioning miniature golf setup that you set up on the floor, right? And so we talked about earlier, I don't teach golf, I don't teach miniature golf, I teach striking with a long-handed implement. I teach force, I teach angle, I teach trajectory. I don't teach golf, they'll learn golf later. But I had another PE personnel say, Coach, you'll never get that. The one thing that you probably shouldn't do with Coach Kovic is say, you're never. My goal going into this year, I wanted to do speed stacks. I checked that box. I wanted to expand my Omnikin program. I checked that box. I applied for the Marion County Public Education Foundation's grants for great ideas, and I was awarded that. And at the end of this year, my students will participate in forward thinking. We will have a striking with long-handed implement course inside and outside that will be standards based. So those are my check boxes. What is my check box for next year? I have some ideas and thoughts that I want to do. There is a program out there called Jump Rope Ninja. Jump Rope Ninjas is on my radar. If you wanted one answer for that, and now you're going to hold me accountable for it, I want to bring Jump Rope Ninja to Bellevue Santos Elementary. I'll use that as a teaser, so hopefully maybe people want to come check out our Instagram page here to see, hey, did he pull off Jump Rope Ninja?
I think you'll pull it off, Koviak. You always get her if you want it. Like you said, you can't tell Koviak no.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with everybody, what you offer here at Bellevue Santos and just across the board what Marion County offers to students that go to our schools here. I don't think they get enough love. I don't think teachers like you get enough love for what you do for the students. So.
Well, thank you. That's very kind to say, but also thank you for coming to our program and letting us show you what we're capable of doing. But also know many, many, many of the physical education teachers in this district, they're very passionate. We all have our own unique ways of doing things, but we have good professionals here. And so thank you for allowing me to speak on their behalf as well as Bellevue Santos.
Well, it's my pleasure. So I hope you guys check back in a couple weeks for another great episode. If you have any questions for Coach Koviak, just put them in the comments or get them to me and I'll get them to him. And check back, like I said, and have a good one.